Hello, welcome back to school. I think I have the wrong book. That's not good. I don't know how they have this organized. I don't know if the text is like above or below the book icon. I don't know. Okay, so I'm gonna do a bunch of reading out of this book so that I know how to do my homework. And I'll try not to listen to the answers. um but we did a bunch of stuff. Um,
Talk back on.
we did a
Drive.
bunch
Back.
of reading,
Button. Page 3.
and we did a bunch of arithmetic pages in class today. We're dealing with fractions with uneven numbers, like 4 and 5 and stuff. It's really weird. But yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go through and
Page 3.
read this audioly, and then I gotta go to choir. So here we go with the preface. I'm going to put it at the bottom of the page so I know when to flip it.
27. Preface. Considering the amount of time given to the subject of arithmetic in our schools, it must be admitted that the results are lamentably poor. It is fair to presume that the faulty character of the textbooks in general use is accountable in part for these results. With few exceptions, American text-minus books in arithmetic seem to leave the teacher out of the account. Definitions, rules, explanations, illustrative problems minus, in short, everything which should be taught by the teacher is placed before the pupil to be learned. It is true that the best teachers generally ignore these false aids and ask the pupils not to refer to them. Yet, because they are constantly before the pupils, the forbidden aids are often times unwisely used, and problems are performed slyly or thought lessly according to the rule or model solution. While these practices are carried on to some extent in good schools, despite the care of teachers, they are universally pursued in schools whose teachers are guided by the textbook. Another fault of text-minus books in common use is the insufficiency of problems for practice, and teachers are compelled to make up the deficiency by placing upon the blackboard original problems or problems taken from arithmetics other than the regular text-minus book. The objections to this practice are: 1. The danger for want of time of giving to the pupils unsuitable or poorly arranged problems. 2. The harm done to pupils' eyes by close and long continued looking frequently before a lighted window. 3. A loss of the teacher's time in copying. The series of books of which this manual is a part is designed to meet the above objections. It will be readily seen that the pupils' books are not merely books of problems intended to supplement the use of an arithmetic already in the hands of pupils, but 541,736. Sinking. One item left.
I have no clue what that was, but okay.
27.
I need
Page.
to go to the next page.
Back. Button. I've preface. Are intended to be used independently, as the only textbooks needed. Moreover, the very large number and variety of problems warrant the assertion that the books contain all the problems that will be needed for drill work. The books for pupils are 8 in number, arranged somewhat on the lines of classification in city-graded schools. The first 2 or 3 books are intended for use in primary schools, the last book in advanced grammar schools or high schools. The subjects are divided as follows: Book 1, numbers from 1 to 20. Book 2, numbers from 1 to 100. Book 3, integers to 1 million, fractional parts of numbers. US money, common weights and measures. Book 4, whole numbers unlimited, common fractions to 12ths, decimal fractions to thousandths, measurements, busy nest transactions, denominate numbers. Book 5, common and decimal fractions, mensuration, denominate numbers, business transactions. Book 6, mensuration, denominate numbers, metric system. Percentage and simple applications, business transactions and accounts. Book 7, profit and loss commission, insurance, taxes, duties, interest, banking, stocks and bonds, exchange, business accounts, geometrical exercises and measurements, ratio and proportion. Book 7, Miscellaneous Questions Involving the Making of. Definitions, Rules and Formulas, Algebraic Exercises, Involution and Evolution Exercises in Geometry and Mensuration, Book Keeping. It has been the aim of the author to include in the books all subjects that are likely to be needed in any school rather than sinking. One item left.
I gotta go to the next page.
Page 5 of Preface V. Limit them to the possible needs of a certain class of schools. Selection of subjects, therefore, as well as a selection of problems under a given subject may be made to suit existing conditions. The following advantages are claimed for the use of the manual and text minus books. 1. The separation of teachers and pupils' books, whereby pupils may be taught properly and may not be given too great assistance. Suggestions as to methods of teaching and drilling, as well as the illustrative processes, explanations, rules, and definitions which belong to the teacher to develop analytically are put into the teacher's manual, while in the pupil's books are presented only such exercises as are needed for practice. 2. The careful gradation of problems by which pupils acquire inductively a knowledge of arithmetical relations and principles and skill in arithmetical processes. This is in recognition of the well-known pedagogical principles of proceeding from the known to the unknown and from the simple to the complex. It is advised that this plan be kept constantly in mind by the teacher, and that whenever a process is not understood or is not readily performed, the pupils be taken back to processes which are well known and which can be performed readily, and then be led forward by easy steps until the desired end is reached. 3. Frequent reviews and such an arrangement of exercises as will enable pupils to have needed practice in the applications of each principle, first by itself and afterwards in connection with other principles which have been learned. 4. The large amount of oral work, or work which may be done without the aid of figures. 3 objects of mental arithmetic are sought in these exercises: a illustration of principles and a preparation for written work. 6 development of the logical powers. C cultivation of ability to work with large numbers by short processes. 5. The great number and variety of problems. The aim has been to give the largest number of problems that will be needed.
I'm gonna turn the page again.
Preface V. Page 6. Back button. By preface. For teaching and for drilling in all grades. For this reason, and because the forms of expression are varied, being taken from many sources, there will be no necessity of giving supplementary drill lessons on the blackboard. 6. Practicalness of work in respect to the character of the problems and the solution of them. Care has been taken to give problems which are most likely to be met in everyday life, and to give them in a practical form. Many of the miscellaneous review problems were made by mechanics, clerks, accountants, etc., with a view of presenting conditions most likely to occur. 7. The introduction of statistics and facts of physics, astronomy, history, geography, etc., thus enabling pupils to gain incidentally much useful information. 8. The use of drill tables and other devices to save the time of teachers. In addition to the above features, some of which are distinctively new so far as American textbooks are concerned, there is the separation of pupils' exercises for practice into small books, somewhat on the lines of gradation in city-graded schools. By this arrangement there are gained greater convenience of handling and economy of wear than in the use of a large book which is intended to be used for several years by the same pupil. The author is aware that the use of these books with a accompanying manual in the manner proposed is not an experiment. Essentially the same plan has been pursued in Germany for many years, and it is confidently believed that American teachers will readily recognize its merits. The work of bringing together so large a number of exercises has been materially lessened by the valuable contributions of teachers, businessmen, and mechanics, who generously responded to the author's request for assistance. Especial acknowledgments for such service should be made to Mrs. Smith, Dale, and Barber of the practice department connected with the Framingham, Mass. Normal School, Miss A. Roof, and Mr. B. W. Drake of Waltham, Mass.
Hold on.
Paid. Preface view. Preface view. Preface view. And Mr. L.F. Warren of West Newton, mass obligations for valuable assistance in correcting proof sheets are also due to Miss F.A. Comstock, the Bridgewater Normal School, and Miss Amelia Davis of the Framingham Normal School. Suggestions for improving the work and corrections of errors, either in the manual or pupils' books, will be gratefully received. By the author.
Okay. And then the next is there's like table of contents.
Page.
Well, somewhere around
Page
here
9 of.
there's the table of contents. So we just read the preface. Now we're gonna move on.
Page.
I'm gonna at least read up to page 18, or is it 16? Whatever covers what I'm working on, just so that I kind of understand what's going on in these. And also, if someone needs to sleep, they can listen to this.
Section 1. General suggestions. Ends. Arithmetic, like most subjects of instruction, may be said to have two values: its practical value as an aid in carrying on the ordinary affairs of life, and the value it has as a means of mental discipline. The ends of teaching arithmetic, therefore, are knowledge and power. It is well for the teacher to know at the outset the relative importance of these ends for the purpose of making a wise selection of subjects and of knowing how they should be taught. If in our teaching of arithmetic we keep only in mind the direct use that it has as a preparation for business, we shall find that a small fraction of the time usually given to this branch of instruction is sufficient. If, on the other hand, we consider the possibilities of a proper presentation of the various topics of arithmetic in the cultivation of the powers of observation, imagination, reflection, and reasoning, and note the rare opportunity which the recitation in this branch has for teaching accuracy and clearness of expression, we shall be inclined to place the disciplinary side of the study far above that of the direct assistance it has in earning a living, or in performing the common duties of life, and give to arithmetic a prominent place in the course. Another end of arithmetical instruction, which perhaps is involved in the ends already named, is skill or facility in the manipulation of numbers. The practical, as well as the disciplinary, value of the study is greatly enhanced by such facility as will enable the pupils to perform accurately and quickly the computations involved in the problems. It is the purpose, therefore, of good teachers of arithmetic to lead the pupils to become accurate and quick computers, and to secure this end there is needed much practice in the application of principles already known. The
Gotta flip the page again.
section page back button. Graded arithmetic. Pupils can add columns, ascertain measurements, and cast interest accurately and quickly only by the repeated performance of the same mental act, and for all such work abundant practices necessary. Course of study. Minus, although the comparative unimportance of the practical side of arithmetic may be recognized, the mistake should not be made of spending much of the time given to the study upon unpractical subjects. The constant aim of the teacher should be to emphasize essentials, and by essentials is meant those subjects and processes which are in some degree a preparation for life or for further study. There is abundant opportunity for useful disciplinary practice in some of the common and simpler subjects, such as denominate numbers, fractions, and the applications of percentage that are made in business. To rightly judge what the essentials of arithmetic are, a consideration of interests other than those of direct utility is necessary. The age, capacity, and so far as circumstances permit, the probable future occupation of the pupils should be considered. Two kinds of practice with numbers are required of pupils from the beginning of the course. One kind which has to do with the mechanical side of problems, the computations with what are sometimes called minus abstract numbers, and another kind which has to do with the applications and use of principles, and which involve some logical processes. The amount of the latter work is relatively small in the lower grades, and gradually increases in amount and complexity as the pupil grows in maturity, while the amount of simple computations for exactness in the four fundamental rules gradually decreases until in the latter part of the course nothing but concrete or applied work is done. So far as this series of books is concerned, it is not supposed that all schools will follow the exact order prescribed, or that the books will exactly correspond with grades of pupils in all places. In the amount of work to be given also there will be a great variety of practice, depending upon the age of admission of pupils, the requirements in other departments of study, and the intentions.
Next page.
Page back button. Teacher's Manual 3. Of pupils, as to the probable extent of their attendance at school. While in no one school or system of schools will it be needful to take up every subject presented, or to give to pupils all the exercises. Of certain subjects it is hoped that both subjects and exercises are sufficient in number and variety to meet the needs of all, and that from them a wise selection may be made. The recitation. One prime purpose of the recitation is to develop the power of self-direction in the pupils to lead them to depend upon themselves not only in accuracy of computations, but also in all reasoning processes for the purpose of encouraging pupils to proper effort in study, and of seeing that certain principles or processes are understood, the teacher finds it necessary to examine their completed tasks or to test them upon what they have done. But to accomplish the objects named, it is not necessary or well to spend the entire recitation time in examination. A glance at the work performed and a comparison of the pupils' answers with the correct answers are generally sufficient to ensure faithful effort in study. To give the lessons learned such prominence as to make them alone determine the pupils' promotion or standing in the class, is to put temptation in their way to copy solutions or answers, or to seek assistance that will not be helpful. Moreover, the detailed explanations and solutions of problems already performed frequently mean a tedious recitation and much needless waiting on the part of some members of the class. If it is desired to ascertain whether the pupils understand thoroughly a principle or process which has been taught, a few problems which involve the principle or process may be given the class as a test. These problems should have small numbers, so that the difficulties of computation will not distract attention, and that the pupils' understanding of the question may appear in the answers they give. For example, if the subject of profit and loss has been taught, and the pupils have brought to the recitation the problems which they have solved in 2 of the cases of that subject, the teacher, after glancing at the work and leading them to correct errors in their answers, might give as a test the following problems.
Next page.
Page 4. Graded arithmetic. A horse which cost $250 is sold for what to gain 20%. I buy a house for $1,000 and sell it immediately for $750. What was the gain or loss percent? Suppose I had sold it for $1,200. What would have been the gain or loss percent? From answers to these and similar questions it will be known whether the subject is understood, and time will be left for other purposes of the recitation. When any subject or process is not understood it should be taught, and by teaching is meant leading the pupils to acquire knowledge by their own efforts. Little should be told the pupils in this process. The teacher's part is first to lead the pupils to recall ideas already in the mind which have some relation to the new principle or process to be taught. Then follows the presenter tion of the object of thought in such a way as to awaken new ideas in the learner's mind or to readjust and reinforce old ones. The object of thought may be a physical object as a meter minus stick or a bond, or what represents an object as a picture or diagram. Sometimes, as in teaching a rule or definition, the teacher has only to help the pupils to recall and rearrange their ideas in an orderly way and to make a general statement from them. Some processes also may be taught by leading the pupils to recall what they have previously learned and make the needful application. Such purposes may be accomplished frequently by skillful shilling. When the matter in hand is taught, and ideas concerning it are clear in the pupils' minds, they need to be fixed by much repetition. This is done in the recitation by drill and in the practice, which the pupils get in study. Little time is needed for teaching compared to the time that is needed for practice. A portion of nearly every recitation may well be given to drill both upon what has been taught recently, and upon what has been taught days or weeks before. Thus it is that 3 means of conducting the recitation in arithmetic should be used by the teacher first. Examination 2. Page Teacher's Manual 5. Test the pupil's knowledge of the topic or topics. Secondly, teaching to awaken new ideas in the pupil's minds. And thirdly, drilling to fix and strengthen the pupil's knowledge of what has been taught. These processes are not always separated in the recitation. Sometimes in the teaching exercise there is more or less of examination and drill, and sometimes in the examination there is necessarily much useful drill. But they all have their place in the recitation, and no one of them should be neglected. Methods of drill. The effectiveness of the drill exercise will depend largely upon the methods employed. The prime object of the drill is, as has been said, to fix in the mind what has been taught. To gain this object, there should be a repetition of the mental act which was occasioned when the principle or process was taught. In the drill exercise, the teacher should have in mind exactly what acts of the mind are to be repeated, and he should also aim to have every pupil employed during the exercise. Drill, which has not a definite object or which consists of a repetition of words only, or which permits inactivity on the part of some members of the class, cannot accomplish all the desired ends. The drill may be both oral and written. If oral, the given problem may be read by one pupil or the rest of the class, reading it silently at the same time, or it may be dictated by the teacher. In either case, all should solve the problem together, either following the oral solution of a pupil or else performing it silently and indicating the answer on slate or paper. By the latter plan, it would be well to have all the pupils work and write very promptly, exactly at the same time. For example, the pupils have before them paper or slate and pencil. The teacher says pencil in hand and dictates not from a book the problem. After giving sufficient time for all to solve it, the teacher says 66, write the answer, and then after just enough time for the pupils to write the figures of the answer, says pencils down. The teacher then gives the answer and asks all pupils who have that answer to hold up the slate or paper so that the teacher can see the answer. It will be necessary for the figures of the answer to be written large.
Next page. This is very
Page 16.
interesting.
Sixth graded arithmetic. And in a given place that they may be seen readily. Properly managed, this method of drill will afford opportunity for giving much practice in a short period of time. This method will serve for examination as well as for dictation. Written drill work may be given from dictation or from the book. If from the book, a number of exercises may be given out for pupils to perform as many as they can within a certain time, or the exercises may be given singly to members of the class, each pupil performing such problems as are most needful or most useful for him to perform. Reviews. For the sake of making pupils familiar with certain important principles or processes, and also for the sake of connecting together kindred subjects, frequent reviews should be made. In giving such reviews, let the teacher have in mind a well-defined purpose, and not force pupils to work simply for the sake of work. No exercise should be given that is not needed, either for fixing in the mind what has been taught, or for testing the pupils' knowledge of a given subject, or for securing skill and facility in the use of numbers, tasks and desk work minus the lessons set for practice or study should, as nearly as possible, serve the needs of every pupil in the class. So far as the character of the work is concerned, those subjects only should be given for tasks which are really needed to be reviewed, or which will serve as a test of the pupil's knowledge. The given lesson also should be of sufficient length to employ all the pupils of the class a reasonable amount of time. To accommodate the work to the different degrees of ability and quickness in members of the class, it may be well to give a lesson which all can do, and in addition, extra work for those who are able to do more. Illustrations. Problems involving measurements and other problems whose conditions are not quite clear should be illustrated by means of plans or diagrams. Care should be taken, however, that the attention of pupils be not diverted from the real purpose of the drawings by their nicety or elaborateness, and that illustra.
Next
Page
page.
7.
I don't know how many pages are in this, but there's a lot of pages.
Teacher's Manual 7. Should be not required when the problems are fully understood, or when the problems can be performed without them. Reading problems. 3. Let the pupils form the habit from the outset of reading over thoughtfully every problem before they begin the solution. The points to be noted in the reading are: what is required? What steps are to be taken? About how large? Will the answer be? Analyses and explanations. Oral analyses or explanations in the lower grades should be very simple. In these grades, short and direct statements as to what has been or is to be done in the solution of a given problem may be made. The statement should, as nearly as possible, represent exactly the pupil's thought and should consist therefore of words largely of his own choice and arrangement. In the middle and upper grades, more and more minute analyses may be insisted upon, the pupils being required as their minds develop to give reasons for the steps taken. But in no part of the course should pupils be required to give formal and ready-made explanations which do not represent their own thinking. Some statements, which explain to the teacher, may actually bewilder the pupils and deaden their thinking powers. Problems and indicated operations. Minus from a very early period. In the course in arithmetic, the pupils should be led to see and to indicate operations that are involved in problems. In the first year, pupils are encouraged to make story problems from equations, and soon after to make the equations from the story problems. This work should go on all through the course until in the later grades much of the work in arithmetic may well consist of written or oral statements of processes that are involved in given problems. Forecasting answers. Every teacher knows what surprising and unreasonable answers to problems are given by pupils, being, in some cases, many thousand times too large or small. To prevent such mistakes and to encourage thoughtful attention to the conditions of problems, it is well by means of questions first to give an approximate estimate as to what the answer will be. Suppose, for example, the problem is how many bushels of potatoes will.
Next page.
Page 8 graded. 8 graded arithmetic. 8 graded arithmetic. Be gathered from a lot of land 100 feet square, if it yields at the rate of 200 bushels to the acre. The teacher may ask, how many feet in the lot? What part of an acre in the lot? If the lot is a little less than 1/4 of an acre, less than how many bushels will the lot yield? Or if the problem is, how many bushels of wheat can be put into a bin 6 feet 4 in long, 4 feet 2 in wide and 3 feet deep, the teacher may ask about how many feet does the bin contain? How do a bushel and a cubic foot compare? Will the bin contain a few more or less than 72 bushels then? Gradually the teacher may give less and less assistance in this direction until the pupils will be able to forecast the answers independently and form the habit of so doing. Language. The good teacher is quick to see the useful and constant opportunities which arithmetic affords for teaching language. From the very first year, when children are encouraged to tell little number stories to the highest grade of the grammar school, when explanations, rules and definitions are required to be made by the pupils themselves, is there constant occasion for the clear and accurate expression of thought. The very accuracy of the thought required in arithmetical processes and definitions makes accuracy of expression necessary both in the choice and in the arrangement of words. Section 2.
Okay. Stop. Okay, so section 2, I'm gonna read that later. I'm gonna do section 2, which basically covers like everything from like pre-year, like pre the first book. And I'm thinking it may just be like everything that we did last year, but just I don't know. And then section 3 covers
8. First step. E. Page 9.
Stop.
Teacher's manual.
Shut up. You won't shut up. Section 3 covers the stuff that's needed for book 1, which is the one I'm needing to work on. So that's, I'll have to finish reading this when I get more free time. I gotta go to choir. I gotta go to the library.
Samsung account legal terms updated. Tap here to agree to the.
I don't know what that is. I have to go to choir. I have another study this afternoon, practicing. The second half of the other choir is beginning. I will have more practicing I don't know if I'm having an organ lesson this week because the weather's supposed to be kind of cruddy again. But that's kind of what I've got going on today. So I will upload more practice videos when I get that done. Until then, you can like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring the notification bell for all notifications.
Stop button window Samsung capture.
Come on, I can't get it to stop.